All right, first thing, I've used Smithfield Extra Tender for 3 or 4 years now. Been the pork team of the year. Lost to a scumbag over here last year by 1 win. Told him everything he knows.
That's the right story, it's just reversed.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a different
reversed.
version. All right, so the first thing I do with the pork, this is at least a 10 to 12 pound butt right here. It's just a pretty big butt. First thing I want to do is look for this money muscle right here. I just sit there and pinch it like that, and you can see how far it goes back. Next thing I do is I flip it over, look for the fat cap. I want a full fat cap covered. This right here's got a gouge out of it. That'd be, I'd give that about a 7 out of 10. Sometimes we gotta use what we gotta use, all right? So, first thing I wanna do is take the knife and just go horizontal, take the top off here. So I'll just take the knife and just start peeling it down. I don't wanna start gouging into this money muscle. I just wanna do some smaller cuts. I want to start peeling this thing out and start to shape it out. I just want to make horizontal cuts, small ones, and start going back because you never know how far this money muscle goes. If I start cutting down, I'll cut into the money muscle before it's over, and I'll cut that thing in half. Pretty much all you're doing is following fat lines. So as soon as I get that off there, you can see where the money muscle ends at. Just follow that to the right a little bit. And you can see it now. You can take your fingers and pretty much just outline it where the money muscle's at, and that's it right there. This is a pretty good sized money muscle. I'd take that for a competition. You can see every once in a while you got to take this fat seam, and what you want to do is just peel it down and kind of minimize that a little bit because it will split. That fat will cook faster than the meat, and it'll end up splitting open. Next thing I want to do, flip it over. I'm actually going to debone the pork butt. The rule in KCBS is 4 pounds, right? So I want to be at 4.1 pounds when I cook my pork butts. I'm going to cook 4 butts at least. I can cook 5 butts on one grate. So if I'm at 5 pounds or 6 pounds, no way I'm getting 5 on there. I want to be at 4.1 pounds. I'll weigh them. All right, so this is the bone end. There's the bone right there. Pretty much just follow that, and then right where the bone turns, turn your knife and straight down. Twist the bone up. Just hack it right off. Right now I can tell you we're about in the 5.5 to 6 pound range right now. So what I want to do is just start trimming off the stuff that I'm not going to use for the contest. Right now I'm worried about the money muscle, and I'm worried about the bacon for the most part. Everything else is just excess taking up space. So I'm gonna start to square it up. Now I'm getting tight. If I had a scale, I'd sit here and start to weigh this thing. If I'm at 5 pounds, 4.5 pounds, start taking off the sides a little bit till I get down to about 4.5 pounds, whatever I can do. So that's about it right there. I've got my money muscle, that's what I'm after for my medallions. I want the bacon. There's a little bit of meat. You can see this right here is the meat I'm after. If it's not covered with fat, it's going to dry out and get real hard and crispy, and I won't be able to turn it in. So if this thing's covered by fat, it's going to scrape right off when it's done. It's going to come off just like peeling off butter off of there. And that meat under there is just so moist and tender. It's exactly what I want to turn in. And the next thing, right about here, if I just take this little bit of fat off here, something called the tubes. 1, 2, and there's another one kind of right underneath the money muscle. Okay, I can use that if it becomes tender, if you inject it real good. Other than that, it's going to be really lean. You can see the marbling is not that well in there. There's a little bit here in the money muscle, it's nice. But right here, it can be a little bit rubbery if you're not careful. So if I have to use that, I will. I'd rather not. So that's how I'll trim my pork butt right there. So I'll do that on about a Thursday before a comp at home. So when I get to the competition, we'll check our meat in, get it inspected. So what I've got going here is going to be a kind of a sweet, savory, with a little bit of salt and pepper in it. Nothing crazy. It's just going to be a well-balanced barbecue style flavor. I don't want anything left or right field. We just want right down the middle. So we'll take a full syringe right here to the money muscle and just inject as you pull the needle out. You want to move it around so you don't get any big pockets of injection. Really just want a nice even coat. It's got some phosphates in here. So phosphates are going to bond with the proteins basically to hold moisture in. So what that allows us to do is we can cook this thing a little bit farther. We can get it really nice and tender, and it's still going to have moisture and it'll still be juicy. So that's kind of the key. You want to get it so tender that the judge is like, oh my gosh, good bite, good tenderness, but it's still juicy. What I want to do with this injection is try to add flavor. You can see this thing puffed up a little bit. You know, it's got some good seasoning in there. Salt, pepper. Next thing I'll do, flip it over and inject this, what I call the bacon. It's not necessarily bacon meat, but it's similar to a bacon where it's a layer of meat in between two layers of fat. This meat's already going to be nice and tender, but I want to add some flavor to it now. All right, so I put basically a syringe and a half in there. Then the next thing I'll do is go ahead and pump up those tubes. The tubes don't taste like much unless you give them a good hit of seasoning here. So I'll go ahead and go against the grain. I go across the grain and pull out. And I feel like that disperses the injection throughout the whole deal. It'll run up each side. So you can see now I took this 4-pound butt. It's about 5.5 pounds now. I just pumped it up full of liquid, full of flavor, full of phosphates, full of moisture, salt, pepper, garlic. It's got everything you want to hold flavor. Instead of cooking it to about 205, you can go to 208 or 210 if you're cooking hot and fast. If you're cooking low and slow, you're gonna be more like 195. Maybe you can go up to 200 and still get the tenderness you want and still have moisture in it. So I'd let that sit overnight, okay? Pull it out in the morning. I always try to apply the rub about a half an hour before I cook, okay? So the rub is basically dehydrated spices. So you've got your salt, pepper, paprika, chili powder, you know, onion, garlic. So when you put them onto the meat, what you want for them to do is kind of bond with the meat to rehydrate the meat with flavor. So we've got just a well-balanced rub. We want to make sure we hit the money muscle. That's our main concern. Obviously, we don't want to cake it on there, but we want to cover it. Pat it in, which kind of speeds up the rehydrating process. You can see it's happening already. The meat will start to sweat out. It'll start to pull the moisture from the rub and the flavorful juice back in. And we don't let that happen for about a half an hour. So that's it right there. You can see we get really good color. That's one thing that we look for in competition. We want a nice color, bright red, mahogany appearance. Right now it's really wet when it goes on. Once the heat gets to it, it's really gonna sweat out. And then it's gonna go through a process where it starts to dry out and the rub actually sets up and bonds to the meat. At about an hour, hour and a half, the fat from the money muscle and everything from the butt is gonna start to sizzle. And at that point, I wanna start to wrap it up because I'm leaking moisture out of the meat. When I wrap it up in foil, you can hold the moisture into the meat and I can start to tenderize the meat. I've already got my smoke color and flavor. I just want to get that thing done at that point. Any questions? Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thank you guys for coming over.